Many of you have questions related to residency of your corporation, whether you're trying to determine for your T2 tax return or just in general for your corporation, whether it's a non-resident or resident of Canada. This video will tell you how. There's definitely two ways to think about residency for a Canadian corporation. The first one is, where was it incorporated? If you were incorporated in Canada, you will be considered a resident for Canadian tax purposes. So under Section 89 of the Income Tax Act, a Canadian corporation is one that is resident in Canada. Either it was incorporated in Canada or resident in Canada from June 18th, 1971 to the present. For example, if you incorporated in Canada, you will definitely be considered a Canadian corporation under Section 89. So that's your first part. What we do need to take a look at is, what if we aren't incorporated in Canada? Of course, when we're looking at incorporation in Canada, we're actually looking at specific documents. We've incorporated in a specific province, and we have all the documentation done by a provincial body in Canada as well as federally. So there's no way of really, I think this is more black and white. You were either incorporated in Canada. Yes, you were. Okay, you're a Canadian corporation. You will be a resident for Canadian tax purposes. No, you weren't. And then we ask ourselves the next question. If we're not a resident, if we were not incorporated in Canada, we have to determine where is our common law. That's where common law kicks in. And common law is pretty much telling you here, we're going to take a look at our central management. And we're going to take a look at our mind and management. Where are our directors? Are they in Canada making the decisions? Is our CEO? Are there meetings in Canada being done in Canada to determine where the company is going, how the company is going to be run? The opinion of the court is the real business is carried on where the central management and control abides. So this is a pure question of fact. Pretty much have to look on it as a case-by-case basis. So if all the directors are Canadians that live in Canada, then your mind and management will be considered Canadian, and you will then be considered a resident of Canada for your corporation. There's other things here as well that they take a look at. For example, where the principal business is done, books and records are located, company seal is kept, bank accounts are maintained. But the most important under common law is pretty much if your mind and management is in Canada or not. Now, you can also be considered a deemed non-resident, and a deemed resident is if you were incorporated in Canada after 26th, 1965. Any incorporation there is considered a deemed resident, but you can also be considered a deemed non-resident. And what that means here is, if the corporation would otherwise be resident in Canada, but under a tax treaty is resident of another country, then you can be considered a deemed non-resident of Canada. Pretty much, if you are a company that was incorporated in the United States and you have mind and management in Canada, now we have this question of, we're definitely going to be a resident of the United States because of the incorporation done in the United States, but our mind and management is in Canada. Now we have this question mark based on the treaty. And here they do explain that under common law, under a tax treaty between Canada and another country, resident in another country, a country may be deemed to be resident in Canada due to incorporation in Canada. However, the same corporation may also claim to be a resident of a treaty country if it meets the residency definition in a treaty. And the tiebreaker rule here is, where was it incorporated? It will be resident of the state in which the corporation was created. So you have three things you need to consider. Where did you incorporate in Canada? If you incorporated in Canada after 1965, April 26, 1965, you're a deemed resident. If you are not incorporated in Canada, you have to look at mind and management. And then you may also be considered a deemed non-resident depending on if you are a resident in another country. For example, you incorporated in the United States and you are there for a resident of the United States for your corporation. You will then be considered a deemed non-resident. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more practical Canadian tax guidance videos. Remember, this is general information, not personalized tax advice. If you're looking for an accountant and you need help with any of your individual tax return, your corporate tax return, any bookkeeping, do let me know. I'd love to see if I can help you. My email is in the description below.